Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from AnthonyMorganti.com. Welcome to my video series, The Filters of Aurora HDR 2018. In this video, we're going to take a look at the Windows version of the top and bottom tuning filter that's in Aurora HDR 2018. I initially did 14 videos in this series, one video for each of the 14 filters that are in Aurora HDR 2018. And I did those videos on my Mac. After the fact, I was looking at the Windows version of the software and I noticed that the top and bottom tuning filter in the Windows version is considerably different than the Mac version. So I decided to do this video where we're going to talk about this filter and how to use it in the Windows version. Now, the main difference between the two versions is the Mac version has a set orientation button. You would click that button, then an overlay appears on your image, and you're able to manipulate the overlay on the image so that the filter gets applied in a very specific way to the image, on the image. Now, the Windows version of software doesn't have that button and doesn't have the overlay. Instead, it has these three sliders, blend, shift, and rotation. And with those three sliders, you could do everything you could do with the overlay. It's just you have to move these sliders around. And we'll get to that in a minute. But first, why would you want to use the top and bottom tuning filter? Well, sometimes you'll take an image and it doesn't look balanced. A landscape example would be you'd take an image of a landscape and the sky is really bright and the land is relatively dark. And maybe the sky is really cool looking and the land is a little warmer looking. So it doesn't look balanced. Well, you could use the top and bottom tuning filter and you could adjust the top one way. Maybe you could bring down the exposure a little bit and warm it up a little bit. And then adjust the bottom where the land is a different way. You could bring the exposure up a little bit and maybe cool that off a little bit so it looks more natural and looks more balanced. Well, in the case of this image here, I'm just going to demonstrate the filter by bringing it to extremes at first. Let's say we want to adjust the top part of the image. So I'll click on the top button and I'm going to take exposure and I'm going to move it all the way up. And you can see how it just made the top part of the image really bright. We're going to click on the bottom button and we're going to take that exposure all the way down. If it would let me, there it is, all the way down. So we have the bottom part now really dark. Now, as I mentioned in the Mac version, there was a set orientation button. You would click that and overlay would appear on the screen. And then you could take that overlay and you could move everything up or down or rotate it or change that zone of transition to be more abrupt. Well, in the Windows version, you use these three sliders. And for example, we'll take this blend slider, move it to the left, and you can see how the transition is real abrupt. And as we move blend to the right, it gets softer and more blended. So for demonstration purposes, I'm going to leave that all the way to the left. There we go. Now, as many of you that use the Windows version know, it's a little buggy and a lot of stuff, and you can see how that didn't render properly right away, and I had to change the size of the image to get it to kick in. You know, stuff you have to live with, I guess, until Skylum software fixes the Windows version so it operates more smoothly. The other thing I found is the shift slider doesn't do much, if anything. And you can see how it's kind of blurring it in here a little bit, but it's really, that's not what it's supposed to do, actually. It's not working right. So we're going to skip that for a minute. I'm going to come back to it. What shift is supposed to do is shift everything up or shift everything down. Now what rotation does, and rotation does work, is it rotates it. So we could, if your horizon isn't straight or if you have mountains in the image and there's, you know, just sky peeking out of one side or something like that, you would use the rotation slider to change the angle of the transition areas. Now what I found was shift doesn't work when rotation is at 0. If rotation is not on 0, in this case it's minus 16, then shift works. You can see as I move it to the right, it shifts up. If I move it to the left, it shifts down. So that's what shift is supposed to do, but technically it should do it even when rotation is right in the middle, going perfectly horizontal. So we're going to reset this entire filter by clicking on this little backward arrow up here at the top. So we have it reset. And I'm going to apply the filter as I would normally maybe on this image. So I'm going to adjust the top first. So I'm going to click on the top. And I'm going to, it's a little bright, so I'm going to take exposure just down slightly. Now, you could adjust the exposure, contrast, vibrance, and warmth of the top, and of course the exposure, contrast, vibrance, and warmth differently on the bottom. Now in this case, I'm just going to take exposure down. I think contrast, maybe we'll just bring it up a little bit just to do it. I think it's pretty vibrant, but I am going to warm it up just a little bit. So I'm going to take warmth up just a touch. So that's all I did, was bring exposure down a little bit and really bring warmth up a little bit, and I added a touch of contrast. We're going to go down to the bottom part of the image by clicking the bottom button. And with that, I'm going to bring exposure up a little bit. So I'm going to make that part a little brighter. And I think I want to make that part a little more vibrant. So I'll move that to the right. Like that. And after it renders, you could see that I think it looks more balanced. So I'm going to click on this little eyeball to give you a before and an after. And a before and an after. So you could see how the top and bottom tuning filter is a pretty powerful filter to really balance out your image and make it look overall better. And I think it worked really well, bugs and all, for this image in this Windows version of the software. So hope that made sense. I hope Skylum fixes the filter soon so Shift works like it's supposed to. And that's it for now. I'd like to thank everyone that watches my videos. I truly do appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon.